Hello everybody, welcome to this live stream. This is the first in a series of how to draw live streams that I am doing because everybody's stuck at home. Everybody needs something to do or learn or whatever, just engage. Everybody needs to engage, and it's getting really difficult to do right now. So yeah, I'm doing this live stream. I'll be doing this every day, so long as, at least as long as the COVID is out there, keeping everybody home. Every day at 10 o'clock. That's the plan. 10 a.m. Eastern, I should mention, for those in other time zones. So what this live stream is about, for anybody who's wondering, it's basically how to draw, like extremely basics. I will probably do some beginner stuff to start the first few live streams and then progress into some intermediate level skills and how to do things. And maybe even a little, if people want me to, maybe even some more advanced techniques. You know, might get into some very esoteric kind of specific stuff if we want to. This may feel a little bit basic if you have any kind of drawing experience at all, but if not, maybe, you know, you'll learn something new. And if it feels a little basic, maybe there'll be some little nuggets in here that maybe you didn't know. Techniques and stuff like that are something that all artists can constantly learn. So let's jump in here. Basically, all right, let me get this really cool distracting thing out of the way here. There we go. That's gone. Okay, good. We don't need that. So, where are we? Okay, so basically, the point of this is to learn to think about drawing in 3 dimensions. So, if we think about, like, how do little kids draw? Little kids draw like this, right? You know, here's a car. I'm gonna draw a car. Something like this. I'm gonna go with a little bigger brush so you guys can see. Look, this is how kids draw, right? I'm sure everybody has drawn a car like this at some point when they were in elementary school or something. Maybe it's got a headlight. Maybe it's got a tailpipe. Maybe it's got some smoke. But anyway, 2D. This is not what we're doing here. We're not concerned with this. We want to go find a way on a long road to go from that to this. We want to get from this to this. That is the goal of this live stream. It's not an easy road. It is not an easy road at all. All right, I'll turn that back off. Okay, so how do we do this? Back on my proper layer. There we go. So how do we do it? Let's get rid of that car. So basically, I'm just gonna pick a different little color here. I'm gonna go for like a gray or something rather than a full-on black. I like to think of drawing objects, and this is specific to objects, in terms of cubes and squares and boxes, basically volumetric shapes, whatever they might be. And the cube being kind of the you know, the most useful of those. Pretty basic kind of thing. I know say cube, this is kind of a flattened rectangle. I'll say cube for things that are not technically cubes, because a cube based on a square should have equal sides, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just using the term cube very loosely. That can mean, to me, a cube could be something that's sort of flat, like a pizza box. This is not technically a cube, but for the purposes of this live stream, that's a cube. Anyway, there we go. So anyway, this right here, this is the basis of what I'm talking about today in this extremely basic starting out kind of way. That's how you go from you know, how little kids draw stuff to something a little more realistic. And that's what most people are after, is being able to draw a little bit more realistic. Oh, did I leave my eraser the size of Manhattan? That's not good. So cubes are important because what they're telling you is, you know, you have lines usually when you have something that's man-made. A lot of times it has parallel lines. All of these lines are parallel like this. But when you look at something from an angle, you know, you don't have this. So here's a flat square. We want to see the other sides of this that we can't see. So that would be this side. And then the parallel line that goes with that would be here and here. So that's how we get to a cube. That's how things start to look three-dimensional and give that illusion that it is three-dimensional. Now, this particular live stream that I'm doing today doesn't have anything to do with perspective drawing. If you've ever heard of perspective drawing, if you know anything about it, we're not touching that. That is definitely an intermediate topic. We're just looking at very, very basics today. So the things that's important to remember about drawing cubes is your parallel lines. Which ones are parallel? These three vertical lines are parallel. These lines here are parallel. And these right here, these are harder to draw. My hand's at a weird angle. Those three are all parallel. And if we draw this cube, you know, in a different position, maybe like this, we're still tracking and thinking about which lines are parallel to which. This one to this one to this one, this one to this one to this one, and this one to this one to this one. So what we want to do is go from one of these cubes. Let me get a couple of these out of the way here. We don't need all of them. I'll leave this one up. So what we want to do is move into being able to draw something, let's say a car. We want to draw a car. If we go back to how kids draw cars and you say, well, let's think about it in terms of boxes. Like maybe I draw a box like this, and then I'm thinking, well, it's a car, so if this is the roof, then, you know, maybe it has a back windshield, and it's kind of this shape, and then I'm gonna cut this stuff out. You can cut away, kind of. You can think about it in terms of cutting away. I'm doing this real fast. If I was actually drawing a picture I cared about, I'd go a little slower. Yeah, I'm not going to get into circles and stuff, but we'll just give the car some wheels. So basically, I've cut away bits of that, bit of that rectangle, right, to build the shape of a car. Likewise, I could do it additively. I could say, well, here's a box. I'm going to draw a box. Now I'm going to draw a box up here, separate box. Maybe put some diagonal lines on it. You know, and then I've still got to deal with wheels, and you know, I'm drawing a car, but I'm basically adding more boxes to it. So this idea in 2 dimensions can be applied to this 3-dimensional cube over here. You can do exactly the same thing, and here I'll show you guys how. I'm gonna draw a cube here. All right. Let's see, maybe here. Have I made this big enough? Might need to make those longer. Let's see. A little bit longer. Cars are kind of long. This is the non-cube cube that I was talking about before. It's not technically a cube, but that's geometry class, you know. A good way to think about this is, what's the total volume of the car? Like if you had a car sitting in the driveway and you drew and imagined a big box, like a gigantic shoebox, for example, around that car, how big would it be? That's kind of what I'm thinking about right now. How big is the front of the car versus the side of the car versus the top of the car? So to get back to that like cutting away idea before, if I do exactly what I did before, but I just draw it on the side of this. So here's my windshield, here's the back window, here's the trunk, here's the engine hood. So now I've drawn that on the side. So all we really gotta have to do now to start drawing this car shape is using our parallel lines, taking them across. Oops, that one didn't draw so well. Come on, there you go. Taking these across like this. Now, I drew some funny angles here, not perfectly perpendicular, but the parallel line rule still applies. So I've got this line here. I'm going to take this line over here. I'm just kind of looking at it right there. See me moving the mouse. I know it might be hard to see the mouse moving. Right there, I'm going to go in the same angle right here. And then I've got an angle right here. I want to do that same angle right here. So parallel lines. Now you're thinking, well, I've got all this other stuff in the way. And this is where erasers come in handy. Don't ever be afraid to erase. It's cool. Drawing without erasing is, I don't know, it's just like something to brag about in the schoolyard. So if I erase that, and then let's say I come back here and I'm going to erase this other bit that I want to cut away, get rid of all that, boom, we're already starting to get kind of a car shape. I didn't draw the back line here for the trunk, so we'll take that across, something like that. And gotta kind of just see the very end of it over there. So I haven't drawn hardly anything so far, and I already have a shape in three-dimensional space that, you know, generally resembles a car. You know, we were looking at drawing wheels earlier, so if we have a wheel well, kind of figure out where that might need to be. Something like that. Wheel well ending around there, I guess. I don't know. Come back in here, get rid of this. Again, I'm going to draw some circles now, but we're not talking about circles today, okay? I'm just going to plop some wheels on this thing for the sake of how to draw a car. I mean, you can't have a car without wheels. So I know this looks, you know, pretty basic. It's probably still very what's the word? Not immature, but you know, basic. It's very basic. Not a lot of detail. But the important thing about this car is that three-dimensionally, it's conveying the idea that this thing exists, you know, on a street, for example, with stop signs or whatever. And that's a level of realism that anybody can add to their drawing just by following these simple steps and stuff like that. I'm going to show you guys another technique for very basic drawing that is somewhat helpful, especially if you, you know, if you draw on a computer, this is pretty easy. If you draw on pen and paper, you know, you can like use tracing paper and stuff to do what I'm about to show you. And basically what that is, here, let's save our car, make a new layer real quick. There we go. So basically how this technique would work would be, I'm again going to draw a cube. Something like that. Again, parallel lines. And I know I may make this look easy because I have done this stuff so many times in my life that I can't help but just kind of cruise through this stuff. So if you have trouble with it, don't get discouraged. This is all stuff that takes practice. Practice, 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 like anything else in life. This bottom line's not quite parallel. It's a little off. I'm gonna redo it. Here we go, right there. Yep. So here's kind of like when I'm doing this, this is what I'm thinking about, but not necessarily what I'm looking at. So I think about these cubes as having on them, in them, basically a 3D grid, kind of like this. If you guys have ever seen like graph paper, like imagine a box totally wrapped in graph paper, like so. I'm trying my best to keep these lines parallel, although you can see this bottom one's not that very parallel. Okay, like that, like this, like this. There you go. A little time consuming. And that's why I usually kind of think about this rather than actually draw it. But what I would encourage beginners to do is to actually do what I'm doing right now. To draw a box and practice drawing parallel lines on that box. And even go to the trouble to match them up. See, I'm matching this up here. Make them connect. It's a good thing to do. Well, this one didn't get finished. Come here, line. There you go. And this is pretty messy. If you wanted to, you could kind of measure this stuff out and be very exact with it. I'm kind of doing it a little rough and messy because that's all we need for this lesson. Look, my back line is not particularly parallel. Look at that. Oh. Anyway, so there we go. So we have a box like this. Now this can really help if you are trying to draw something and you have a way to basically use tracing paper, or if you're like I'm going to show you in a moment, if you're on a computer or something, I can take this and put it in the background and draw on another layer, or if you're using paper, you know, put a piece of tissue paper over it and then draw on top of that. So this can help you see the 3D space that you're trying to draw on. So if we go back to, you know, our car or something like that, or maybe we'll draw a minivan this time. Let's mix it up a little bit, you know, because minivans are so cool, right? So if I've got a minivan, you know, I'm kind of thinking about it like, you know, here's the profile of the thing. Maybe come down here, the tires are down here somewhere. Man, that's a cool minivan. Wow. I'm so into minivans. I'm not really. But you can see there, I've drawn basically a 2D minivan on the side of this this cube, and then using the parallel lines that I've established, I can kind of figure out where does the other bits of this minivan need to go. And I don't even need to go to the end of this thing. I can work within this space. Again, looking at parallel line here, same angle there and there. Got this line right here, something like that. This line over here. There we go. And we're starting to get a minivan. And we'll put the back of it on. I often make sound effects when I draw, so you guys out there in live stream land are just gonna have to deal, because yeah, that happens. That's half the fun of drawing, is make sound effects to go along with your drawing. You know, and if I want to start doing more details, having this grid here like this is just a huge help. It's a humongous help to learning to draw and figure out where these little details need to go. And even something like a side mirror on the side of the minivan, it even helps me kind of visualize in 3D space, where does that need to go? What kind of minivan is this? Let's see, what should this be a minivan for? Flowers? Is it a flower minivan? Yay. Happy flower minivan company. Yay. So even in drawing like a flower on the side of the van, because I have this grid to help me out that I've already established, that helps me figure out where in 3D imaginary space that should be. Same thing if you're doing, you know, like the grill you know, or the headlights or whatever detail. You can just keep diving down the rabbit hole in terms of details on a vehicle like this. Or anything else. It's not just vehicles. This what I'm showing you here basically applies to almost anything that you might want to draw, even including organic objects, rocks and logs and trees, and, you know, even to an extent mountains and stuff like that. Granted, it's a little harder. That's different, and maybe in a future live stream I will get into doing that sort of thing. So what I would suggest, what I definitely think that if you're interested in learning to draw like this, you should certainly, number one, practice drawing cubes. And I know that sounds like probably like super boring. And you're gonna be like, really, you just want to draw blocks? But I want to show you guys a sketchbook page. This is a picture I took of one of my sketchbooks. I literally practice drawing cubes like this before I draw. It does a couple of things for you. It will, first of all, it gets your muscles in your hand and your arm ready to draw. It warms you up, just like getting warmed up before doing an exercise or any other physical activity. If you do warm up, you're going to do better once you actually start. The other thing that this is good for is, in your mind, certain parts of your mind work towards drawing, especially in 3D imagined space. So doing this exercise, and not necessarily a whole page of it like this, but at least a little bit, doing this exercise helps your mind sort of get into that headspace of, okay, we're thinking about three-dimensional objects and how they relate to each other. So don't feel like this is dorky. Definitely, if you want to get better at drawing objects in 3D space, give this a try. However, if you go crazy like me and decide to do a whole page of them, definitely take breaks. Always take breaks. Take care of your muscles. Don't overwork your hand and all that. Pay attention. There are definitely hand stretches and things like that that people who draw a lot should do on a regular basis. Next, I would say, and we're getting towards the end of the the actual lesson, and pretty soon I'm going to move on to doing a drawing. But if you guys wanted to sort of have a little have some ideas of what to do to get better at this, obviously drawing cubes, that's number one. But you could also, sorry, let me move this minivan out of the way. Where are you, minivan? Are you here? You're here. Okay. Move over. Anyway, if you wanted to do kind of some exercises that would help you improve this, some things that I would suggest trying to draw, things around the house, easy to have a look at and figure out how to do. You know, an easy thing to draw might be trying to do a dresser, right? It's already basically a cube. Most dressers, not all, but most dressers are basically already a cube, and you're kind of just adding some details, drawers, handles, some little feet, maybe, depends on whatever dresser you're looking at. If you wanted to try something a little bit harder, I might suggest a basic house. You can see here, if you just start thinking about this, here's a cube in there. You can see I've drawn a cube and I've erased bits of it. I put a roof on. I've drawn little windows on the side of this cube. Just kind of been careful about lining them up, just like I did with the car. Same concept. There's not a lot of difference between drawing a car and drawing a house. In fact, I'd probably argue that a house is actually easier to draw than a car. So, and if you really kind of want to challenge, you know, here's a suggestion that I would make, because it seems simple, but a chair, oh no, the minivan's in the way. Move the chair. A chair is actually a pretty decent challenge, because people are pretty familiar with chairs. We tend to sit on chairs quite frequently, usually every day, most of us. And you think you know a chair, until you try to draw one. And then you're like, wow, this is a little harder than I thought. So if you're looking for a bit of a challenge, you know, try to draw a chair. This one, I'll give you guys a hint. I talked earlier about, you know, adding cubes and taking away cubes, like here. And when I drew the house, I drew a cube. Then I drew another cube here that was the garage. I added that cube on. But when I drew the car, I was kind of cutting. I was thinking about cutting away places where the windshield goes and stuff like that. To do the chair, you kind of have to do both of those things. I think about it as a cube sitting on top of a cube up here, sitting on top of another cube down here, and I'm cutting away everything except this part. And then I add in all the details and do all that stuff. So if you guys want a challenge, try to draw a chair. That is definitely a good quest. I was going to say quest. It's not really a quest. Challenge. That's what I'm trying to think of. Thanks for watching the lesson, and please feel free to stick around for the balance of the drawing. So thanks so much.